Well, we're officially halfway through the new Shaman King, so here's another video, I guess. I was waiting for the show to reach the halfway mark for a while now because I didn't have any other videos planned, but that wasn't really smart because I nearly went an entire month without posting anything, so... I want to start off this video by correcting something that I said in my last one. I mentioned the scene where Yo first encountered Hao's minions and said that they revealed a plot twist in the weirdest way possible. That plot twist being that Yo is Hao's brother. In this scene, they actually just revealed that he was a descendant of Hao, which I don't really know how I missed that. I guess I was just really annoyed and assumed that what they were doing in the scene was revealing the past between the protagonist and the main villain, but it wasn't really a spoiler on my part because the show spoiled it themselves in the first episode. Speaking of which, I understand why the 2021 version did this, but I have to say, once it gets to the part where the plot twist was supposed to be revealed, it seems pretty unnecessary. It probably would have been better if they had just not done that thing at the beginning and then played the flashback in episode 25 normally. That way it wouldn't seem too redundant and the pacing near the beginning of the show would have been better too, since they would have more time to adapt the material. I don't think it's terrible because the 2021 version showed new stuff along with the flashback from the beginning though, so that's not really a major problem that I have with the show. And starting off this part, we're actually going to be talking about something that the new Shaman King does way better than the original: Chocolove's character. In the original version, Chocolove always felt like he was just there for comic relief. He did show a bit of depth, like in episode 50, where he had to deal with his insecurities and fears that nobody found his jokes to be funny, or when he didn't trust Yo after finding out that he was related to Hao. But whenever these moments of interesting turmoil came up in the show, it was always resolved in a very quick manner. There wasn't any room for development for the guy. Not that it really made the show worse, I just thought that he didn't bring much to the table, and if he was cut out from the original show entirely, then I wouldn't have minded it that much. But in the new version, he actually has a backstory that's explored in some of the best episodes of the show so far. In this version, he actually has a reason for trying to be a comedian and save the world through laughter. Now he's one of my favorite characters in the show, and he doesn't even do that whole gag thing as much as he used to. It doesn't feel like he has to rely on a crutch to be relevant anymore, a pretty major difference from the original show, which I really like. Another pretty major difference is how the two shows handle Hao's magic book. Unfortunately, I don't like how the new show handles this plot beat in the story. I guess I'll go over what I liked about this part in the original anime in order to demonstrate why the new version doesn't really work for me. In the original, all of Yo's friends gets powered up at the same time, which does cause its own problems, but we'll get to that in a bit. In the original version, we actually see what they go through in order to get this sudden boost in power. It's not just something that happens off screen, which magically explains why Yo and his friends can stand up to the X-Laws and other participants in the shaman fight. It becomes a trial, something for the main characters to overcome. They need to resist Hao's influence, they need to retain a sense of self. Not only does that make the sudden power-up feel more earned, but it also explains why they were able to become stronger than others who fell to that same trial. A trio of Hao's minions are used to demonstrate this, and a full-blown fight with the X-Laws is used to power scale our heroes afterwards. All of this is apparent in a really beautifully directed sequence with amazing music, strong visuals, and some badass and chilling exchanges of dialogue. But in the new version, they power up off-screen. I was actually kind of confused when I saw Yo do his huge oversoul at first. It comes out of nowhere. I don't even remember if there was a scene where Anna gave Yo the tiny red sword that he uses for his attack. It just comes so suddenly, and the first fight where he's power scaled is really strange too. It starts off with Yo using his spirit of sword from the get-go, but then he just stops. I guess this was specifically here to show how lazy Yo is, which it does work, but I find it strange that they would do that in the middle of a fight. As a means of showing how much more powerful our heroes are, it doesn't work that well either. They go up against a team who hasn't built up any kind of reputation in the audience. We only saw them freeze Chocolove, who did do well on his own against Hao's minions, but then they get stopped by Horo, which at that point, that's just pathetic. Lyserg beat that clown, and Yo still beat Lyserg easily. What they do before the fight just isn't good enough to make me see the difference between pre-upgraded Yo and post-upgraded Yo. The original pits the protagonists against a group of shamans that they previously had a lot of trouble with, which demonstrates how much they grew after Yo and his friends wiped the floor with them. Another difference in this fight is that in the original, we actually got more of the backstory of Team Iceland, which made the episode slow in the beginning, but if I'm being honest, it also genuinely made me feel for them after they lost their fight against Yo. It also gave a pretty nice parallel between them and Ryu and Faust. I found their 2021 counterparts to be pretty amusing, but other than that, there wasn't any real reason to actually care about them, which should have been fine since that wasn't really the purpose of this fight, but the fight doesn't fulfill its intended purpose either, so point goes to old? If you watch the other parts of this series, you might remember that one of my main complaints with the recent episodes of Shaman King 2021 was Lyserg and how his character was handled, and I think he's improved. I still think that the original handled his character better since the build-up to his betrayal was done much more carefully because him switching teams actually came about naturally in the story, given the fact that he actually, talks to the X-Laws and gets a better feel for their characters and beliefs before deciding to join them. But we're talking about the new version right now, and he isn't anywhere near as bland or one-dimensional as he used to be in the show. Putting him in how Lyserg is being treated is after he didn't want to kill these guys in a match, and so he got slapped around and called a bitch. There are some slight differences in how these fights play out as well. Well, okay, they're kind of the same thing. Yo's attitude while watching the fight in the new version is nonchalant. He doesn't show on his face how worried he is for Lyserg. He says that he's happy for his friend since he was able to find people who understand him. Although he doesn't like the X-Laws, he still views Lyserg as a friend, but that'll probably change if he crosses the line. But at the same time, he trusts in his friend, which means he knows that Lyserg won't betray that trust. In the original version, Yo's the one who's freaking out about all this. He sees his friend acting like this and doesn't like what he sees. He does say something of similar wording to his 2021 counterpart, but he refers to this sentiment in the past tense, showing how he was fine with Lyserg joining the X-Laws until he saw how ruthless he's become. In this case, it's hard to say which version is more accurate to Yo's character. While Yo is very laid back and composed most of the time, we have seen that when it comes to his friends, he tends to be on edge. I think both versions work, but I do have to give the edge to the new version slightly, since it managed to capture both aspects of Yo's character pretty damn well, giving a reason as to why he wasn't freaking out about Lyserg going apeshit. Another difference is that in the original version, Yo is the one who ultimately convinces Lyserg not to kill his opponents, whereas in the new version, Lyserg stops on his own. In the original, Yo does everything in his power to prevent Lyserg from doing something that he can't take back, whereas in the new version, Yo doesn't want to influence Lyserg's decisions, bracing for the possibility that he may become an enemy. These two differences also have an impact on how the audience perceives Lyserg as a character. The original demonstrates how much Lyserg respects and cares about Yo still, despite the fact that he has nothing to do with him, and the new version shows that Lyserg can care about his sense of morals on his own. I think in this situation, the original version is better, since it gives off the impression that Yo is literally the only thing that's holding Lyserg back, which makes more sense given how his character has been portrayed up until this point. Lyserg's conscience is supposed to be overridden by his hatred for Hao, which is why it would make more sense for Yo to be the one to stop him. Speaking of Hao, I really like how both versions portray him. He's such a sadistic little fuck that loves flexing on people, and you just gotta love him. What a fucking badass, seriously. Almost nothing rattles him, and the impression that he has some master plan working behind the scenes is just so freaking awesome. I just love the absolutely insane degrees that he goes through to make people feel the absolute worst that they ever have in their life. If I had to pick which version I like more, I'd go with the original, but only because he's had a lot more screen time so far. Plus, he has some kind of depth and a sympathetic side to him. He was an extremely powerful shaman and people feared him for it. It's pretty basic, but it's something. But there is actually one thing I think was handled better in the new version involving Hao. In the original anime, I was always confused that the writers tried to pull the old main character's rival turns to the dark side trope, as doing this so late into the series was almost a guarantee that it wasn't going anywhere. Especially considering the fact that by this point in the story, Ren has built up so much respect for Yo that it really felt like the show was trying to shoehorn it in. But in the new version, it's almost as if it benefited from the rush beginning, as because of it, Ren and Yo don't seem as close. The chance of this actually happening is greater than zero. And because Ren hasn't gotten boosted from the magic book yet, there's more incentive for him to actually take Hao up on his offer. It actually gives credibility to the inferiority complex that Ren is starting to form. This isn't me trying to justify or take back what I said about the beginning of Shaman King, by the way. I still think that the early material was sloppily handled. And that's it. There's no however, there's no but. I don't condone that kind of practice when it comes to making an anime. All in all, now.